Welcome, everyone. I'm Annabel, Talent Coordinator here at BioBuzz. Super excited to have you guys all here today for our special Career Catalyst session that's part of our BioBuzz Talent Lab. So we know during career transitions, especially those moving from federal roles to private sector, that can be pretty daunting, but want you guys to know that you're not alone. So our goal for the session today is to provide you with some insights, strategies, and practical advice to help make the process smoother. So if you've ever been to another Career Catalyst session, unlike our regular presentation style format, it's going to be a little bit more interactive today, going to be a little bit more of a fluid presentation and Q&A and discussion. We're fortunate to have Matt Majoros from our sister company, Workforce Genetics, here. Matt has extensive experience in talent acquisition across life sciences, healthcare, IT, and engineering, as well as government contracting. He's worked with companies of all sizes, from startups to billion-dollar organizations, helping professionals navigate their career transitions successfully. So very happy to have Matt here today.
Yeah, hey, thanks. Matt Majoros, excited to be part of the presentation today. So thanks, Annabel, for allowing me to take some time to talk through a pretty important topic. So I know that we're all, kind of excited to dive into some of the content here, but we want to keep this presentation pretty informal. So we're asking everyone to, if there's questions out there, to don't be afraid to raise your hand, chime in. I think these conversations go a lot smoother if we get some input from the attendees as well. But excited to talk about it. It's an important topic, like I said. I know there's a lot of uncertainty out there, no matter which industry you're coming from. As you're transitioning at any point in your career, it's a big decision, and you need to, somewhat come in prepared. So we're going to talk through a little bit more about that, some things, best practices, some tips that will hopefully help you as you're considering a move here. But listen, it's a big, again, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's a big transition. It's a big decision, no matter where you are in your job career. Transitioning, into any new career field, industry comes with a lot of stress. Our goal today is to kind of walk you through some tips and best practices, and have some open dialogue about what are some things that you could potentially consider. So coming from we'll hone in on the transition from federal to private. But again, I think a lot of the things that we're going to discuss today can be used in pretty much any different industry there was. So we're going to talk a little bit about taking a breath. I know it's stressful. I've been there, but take a breath and work on putting a plan together. Number 2, we'll talk about revamping our resumes or CVs. 3, enhancing your professional brand on LinkedIn. Number 4, I think I probably could have added a few more networking pieces to the puzzle here, but networking is a key ingredient to the job search. 5, we'll discuss the application process. I know that's a fairly hot topic out there. It can be a lengthy process, so we'll talk through that a little bit. I'll give you a little bit of inside information on what could help with that. And then number 6, we'll talk about the advantages of working with some talent consultants out there as well. So kind of diving into the presentation here before we get into some more questions. As I mentioned, looking for any job at any stage is overwhelming. So here are some things that you can think about as you're starting to get the planning process going. Number 1, it's helpful to write out target industries, roles, and companies that may be of interest to you, whether it's, writing it out on a handy notepad like this, or if it's making a list, on a computer, whatever it might be. It's helpful to really do some research and look to see what companies are out there that you're interested in. So, you're in the driver's seat here. You have every opportunity to really consider what's most important to you as you're looking into these companies. And that kind of leads me to my second point. You may be in a different position now than you were 5 years ago, or you may be just, maybe this is your first kind of entrance, after a year or two in the federal sector into the private world. But, everyone's at a little bit of a different point in their career. So in addition to thinking about the roles, companies, industries, we want to make sure that you're thinking about like what's most important to you. So is it going to be the pay? Is it the benefits? Is it the retirement package that they have there? The match from a 401k perspective? Is it remote, hybrid opportunities? All these things are going to be important as you're starting to consider, what's the next step for you in the private sector. And then, think about who you know. Leverage your personal and professional network to think about, who you can reach out to ask, what it's like to work for these companies that you may have interest in. So don't forget to think about friends, families. I was just at a an event for the PTO, and certainly ran into some friends in the neighborhood that got some more insight into what they're doing professionally, and found out a lot of valuable information about different industries. So every opportunity you have to speak with someone about what they're doing is a good opportunity to take that. But after you've done some research, you want to list out the target companies and the roles, and then start reaching out to connections on LinkedIn. LinkedIn will come up a couple different times in the presentation here. It's a good tool. It's not the only tool, but it's a good tool. So definitely make sure that you're leveraging that. If you haven't already, I'll give you some more tips on what you can do to increase that profile visibility. But in addition to using your LinkedIn resources there, don't forget about the professional associations and other networking groups. We have some resources towards the end of this presentation and the conversation that can put you on the right path if you're not familiar with all of those. But I'll hit the pause button real quick and just see if there's any specific questions on this. If not, totally cool. We can go on to the next slide. Whoops. All right. So I think we're in good shape. The resume or CV. So something to think about, what you have together today, if you're not keeping it up to date on a consistent basis, may need to be revamped. And that's totally fine. What worked maybe a few years ago may not work with the introduction of various AI technology when it comes to recruitment, applicant tracking systems. All of that has advanced over the past couple of years. So if it's been a little bit, I do recommend taking some time to review your resume. And as you're doing that, one of the key pieces of information that I wanted to drive home today was, don't just take a job description and cut and paste that on your resume. So you want to be very specific about the work that you have done. And I think, having the opportunity to put some specific examples on your resume and, list out projects, the outcomes, whatever they might have been, you want to be able to demonstrate your experience versus just having a laundry list of responsibilities. Like that's going to be key as you're looking for new opportunities out there. That's true in any different industry, but especially from the federal sector to the private sector, you want to ensure that you're able to take that really, really good experience and put it into, actionable kind of references in terms of the work that was done. Be results oriented when it comes to your resume and demonstrate that experience that you had there. Number two would be list out the achievements. What research were you able to push forward? And is it clearly visible on your resume? That's the other thing. Not every application you put in will lead to an initial phone screen. So you got to be sure that you're putting the relevant experience on paper. So that is the first kind of, step into a potential interview there. So I know it's hard sometimes too. And you may have to look at a job description and tailor your resume a bit per job because you don't necessarily always want to have a 10-page CV. While in some cases that's very helpful, you also want to kind of put a recruiting cap on as well. And a lot of recruiters get a lot of applications for one job. In some cases, they get hundreds of applications for one job, and they have to do their best to quickly screen through those applicants and find who meets the job requirements based off of what they have in terms of the job description. So use job specific keywords. So there is technology out there that picks up on keywords, and it will, most applicant tracking systems or CRMs that employers have in place now will have some technology to, potentially, stack up your resume based off of a job description and resume. So make sure that you've got the relevant keywords that are also on a job description in place on your resume so that can get picked up. And then try to eliminate any sort of lingo. Some companies, depending on the culture and whatnot, especially from the federal world, you may have some things that seem fairly, everyday use. I know from the recruiting world, we have a ton of them, but you just want to try to limit the amount of, lingo that's not widely understood. So again, you're trying to make the best case for yourself in front of recruiters who may not have spent time within the federal world, but more so within the private sector. So just kind of understand the audience of who you're putting your information in front of. A couple other things just to think about federal background. I kind of look at it like, hey, that's a pretty unique experience. And as you're entering the private sector, what can you do to help that company grow? And I think understanding, potentially procurement processes, potentially leveraging contacts, understanding how to navigate a large bureaucratic organization is helpful, especially for companies in the private sector who may be looking to, at some point, to do business with the government. So some things to kind of think about that are unique to yourself and that federal background. And then, of course, identifying transferable skills, making sure they're relevant and visible on the resume as well. So this is we talked about LinkedIn. So everyone's got a brand out there. And I know not everyone's the biggest fan of various social media sites. I get it. I totally understand and respect it. But, I would say for people who are on the job market right now, you definitely want to leverage LinkedIn. Again, there are other tools out there. There are other means of getting your professional experience out there. But I think most common right now, at least, is to leverage LinkedIn. So it's not required to have an increase in the level of subscription you have. I'm not pushing that by any means. It does help sometimes, and maybe you do it for a month or two, and then kind of see what the ROI is on that for yourself. But that could be an option to increase the level of account that you have with them. But if not, you'll still do fine without it. But some things to consider: get an updated headshot. Make sure that you're leveraging. They have a lot of tools available within the platform. So, if you're not really good at writing up a summary of your background, leverage their AI tools to help you with that. They can get you started. Doesn't necessarily mean, you allow it to write it for yourself, but you get the help to get the juices flowing within the brains in terms of how to demonstrate your experience. You want to demonstrate it in a way that's, thorough, but it's also not a novel. You have a short period of time to capture attention of recruiters and hiring managers out there. So that helps you out with that. And then once you've done all that, you want to engage with the community, not just liking things. You want to bring original thought to the table, have some good points, try to make it relevant to the companies that you're targeting. Look for various research that has been done by companies out there, comment on that. So, participate. If you're able to comment or post something or contribute to an article, you usually say you want to do it at least 3 times a week. Your visibility will continue to go up based off of your interactions with other people's content. And then something else to think about is interact with LinkedIn's own proprietary content as well. A lot of times they'll have articles written out there by LinkedIn, staff members. So that's really good to interact with. They like that. So, don't forget about that. It's just something else to kind of think about as you're looking to build out your brand there. But be an expert in your field, be a thought leader, bring some original things to the table here, and do your best to participate as you feel comfortable with. I'm not 100%, it's not my favorite thing in the world to be out there all the time on LinkedIn. However, I do think it's relevant. I do think it's important. And I do think it's, helpful as you're really starting to position yourself as a, subject matter expert in whatever field that you're looking to get into. All right, so networking is kind of, as we're hitting the last few slides here. So network's important. Hands down, you got to put the effort in. So you'll hear this as you're looking for a new job. It should become kind of your job. So networking is part of it. You got to do some extracurricular activities outside the normal business hours. So get out there and identify a few professional groups. BioBuzz is a great resource when it comes to events. Make sure that you're taking some time and effort to get out there and participated in these events. But not only that, I say work it up here, right? So you want to actually consistently hit these different events with whatever association they're with, and look for opportunities to join a committee. That's something else that is really helpful as you're looking to get out there. The more time you spend with the people that are part of these organizations, the better off you're going to be. And it's all about like knowing, kind of positioning yourself at the right time. Some of this does come down to timing. So, the more interactions you have with them, you're going to stay top of mind for people. And when that, hiring manager that you've been working with for the past month or two, has an opportunity, you're going to be the first one they think about. Engage in meaningful conversations. Look for relevant information that's out there from the potential target companies you're looking into. Follow up on the working relationships that you built. Make sure you don't just go to one event and then forget about the contacts. Follow up on LinkedIn. Send a thank you email. Try and set up a coffee for maybe a meeting outside of that if it's with a company that you're really interested in. So look to really work those types of engagements that you've had, and then use the Chat GPT Copilot features for insights into the company. You're looking for insights so you can bring conversation to the table there, not just talking about the weather, the Orioles, Ravens, whatever it might be. Have some meaningful conversations ready to go, and how your experience could potentially help that company, continue to grow and thrive as well. So last couple slides, I'll move through these quick, so I know we're going to get to some questions here. But so the application process, I know when you're out there looking for work, you fill out a lot of applications. You take time on your resume. So by the time you get to the application and they want you to fill out your resume again, sometimes it's a little bit frustrating. But I will say be patient with that. And it is important to fill out the information that's being asked of you on the application. It's not ideal for every situation, I know, but if they're asking for you to list out your experience and you have a attached resume, I would still take the time to list out your experience and make sure what you're listing on that is relevant to the job description. Because what happens is that information that you're putting in there, yes, it does leverage your resume, but that information is just another opportunity to put in your experience so their system internally can pick up on those keywords and match it to the job. So when they go in there and look for, relevant profiles, your name's going to be at the top of the list. The other thing is to keep track of the companies you've applied to and try and keep track of the jobs. Keep a good active running list of that so you have that handy. I know it can be sometimes hard because there are many opportunities out there, but don't just apply to jobs. That's part of the problem, I think, is that there's a lot of people that may just apply, kind of mass apply to opportunities out there, and that's not be strategic. Put your resume out there for jobs that you feel like you're qualified for, and then it makes sense so that you don't want to be in the system 20 different times for every different job, because a recruiter will see that and tell that you're just kind of like mass applying to opportunities out there. So I would be a bit more strategic with that. Have a cover letter that's nice, that's tailored to the job, and then follow up with a note. I know I don't think it's overwhelming to, if you're able to identify who the recruiter is on that job posting or the hiring manager for that matter, send a nice LinkedIn message saying, hey, I'm excited, I've applied, can't wait to hear back and looking forward to the next steps. Thank you so much. That's it. If you did meet someone at a networking event and you've applied to a job at their company, make sure that you're following up with them as well, just to let them know. And then something else to think about is, making sure that your email address, I had to do this back, my email address in college, is not what I'm using now. You want to make sure that it's professional, and not that it wasn't, but just some things to think about there if you haven't updated your email address in a long time. Okay, last thing is, work with a pro. So work with a talent consultant. Workforce Genetics is here. We focus in on working with partners within the biotech pharma industry, obviously. We're also focusing in on the healthcare industry. So, we would certainly love to have an opportunity to speak with you. However, we're not the only ones. There's some really good, talent consultants out there. The reason it's important to leverage people that do this for a living is because they can help you kind of bypass the application line, and we work directly with hiring managers. And we can also talk through your resume and give you some tips and advice on how to, help out with those sorts of things. We have a very efficient interviewing process. We're working very closely with the hiring managers, so we have an understanding of what they're looking for, and we can help describe that position to the possible people that we're working with. But we can also be an agent for the candidates that are looking and provide that, basically act as your agent to the client and present you in a fashion that helps you stand out from the crowd. It's just additional support. We're here. We're dedicated to working with our clients, both on the employer side and then also on the job seeker side as well. So just another dedicated resource out there with additional eyes looking for you and have your best interest at the top of their list. So that's it from a quick presentation point. I'll probably reference some of these in our answers, but happy to follow up, answer any questions, elaborate. I'll turn it over to you, Annabelle.